So, I work at the IJ, and we've been getting a lot of letters to the editor on this race. And one of the key things people are unclear about, I know you said, we're not voting for an outcome, but the one school, two schools, community schools, or split it up, two campuses, one elementary and I just want to be really crystal clear the next story I write, because I listened, it came up over and over again. I'm still not really 100% clear on what each person believes would be the ideal, ultimate structure. Would it be one school? Would it be two schools? Would it be split up elementary and middle school on two different campuses? Or if you support a community school at Bayside, does that mean two schools, like one community school in Marin City and then still Willow Creek? What is the definition of the community school and how does that affect? So I'd like to hear, if it's not too much to ask, I'd like to hear from each person really briefly, like one school, one school and what campus that one school would be, or two schools, or...
I think I can phrase that question.
Okay.
So
sorry.
I think the question is meant to say, if we were going to go with a one school option, or what your thoughts are, would we be doing a single school that had two campuses? Would we be or if we were going to be keeping two schools, or would we be looking at making a one school campus and not having one of the schools that we have right now be a school? So what are your thoughts on that?
And the community school.
Middle school and the elementary school.
And how does a community school fit into that model?
Perfect.
Okay. Simple question. So I think the clear thing is that we've got 530 kids in this district, K through 8. We need to have a single system. That single system needs to either look like a single TK through KA or a lower school and an upper school. Anything other than those two solutions is not A, financially sustainable, and B, doesn't bring this community together to make sure that every child is having an integrated, inclusive education, maximizing the massive resources that we have to take care of all kids. I think regardless of the of whether you have a lower school or upper school or a single KA, the concept of a community school is critical, because there's a formal sense of a community school, but there's an informal sense of a community school, which says make your school the hub of the community so that it can help everyone in the community, but most important, the most needy families in your community. How do you support the children of those families? How do you help with professional development, education, and other services for those families? So I think regardless of what exactly it looks like, it needs to be a single system, long-term, and it's got to have a community element to it, because over half our children in this district are low-income and English learners. And by the way, that's at both schools today, and that will not change no matter the structure.
So I strongly support the community school as well, and I think that should be based in Marin City, because the largest number of low-income folks who need support and services are in Marin City, whether they're in school at Bayside MLK or whether they're at Willow Creek. And so the services that would be provided in a wraparound setting, I think are most appropriately delivered at the Bayside MLK site. And again, that's providing after school support, it's providing resources for the parents. I'd love to see a legal clinic, but just what we need to find out from the parents, right? And that's been the process that has been going on for a while within the district, to say what are those services that people need to thrive in that community. I think that it would be incredibly valuable to pull together the middle schools, because I think we have the numbers are just too small. And I am really open to considering what that looks like. I cannot physically, there are some legal issues associated with trying to merge the charter and the public school. There's a government code section that requires that the teachers in the district support, 50% of them support a charter school. And I don't know if your vision is for it to be charter or not. Okay, so we're just all like, we have no idea how this is going to work out, but we want to make it happen. Right, exactly. So we're all in that, I'm sorry, but we are all in that mode that we need to talk through and figure out how to do it. But it sounds like we all agree with community schools, and it sounds like we want to bring it together, and we have no idea how to make that happen. But we will, because we're going to be talking.
I have very specific ideas on how to make it happen. I've had those ideas for a very long time, before I even sat on the school board. It makes no sense to have a 2-school structure, and when I joined the board, 3-school structure. It makes no sense for the size of population we're serving. There are some complexities in working through the process, but the process is how you make it happen. Understanding who you are sitting down with, what are the rules, how you're negotiating. Charter school has rights. I've inherited in my tenure a charter school structure here. We can't just close a charter school arbitrarily. We can't just not renew a charter school on any reason we want. So we're going to have to sit down with the leadership of the charter school. That's the how. And they're going to have to trust the people they're negotiating with. Not because they only have the charter school's interest in mind, but because they have the experience and the knowledge and the desire to make it happen for all kids. It's not going to be a quick process. We're going to have to engage the entire community. Teachers are going to play a role. We know what it takes to work through this process. I do not care if the end result is a charter school or not. We will work that through in the process. We'll figure out what pencils out best on paper for all parties involved. I do feel passionately it should be a K-8. Usually the phrase TK-8 is not used, but I'm going to go with that too. So there are some real benefits to a K-8 structure. It was recommended by past superintendents, I believe the grand jury, and a number of other good sources. The community school is not beholden to a campus or a location or one school or two. It's something I've studied very deeply, I believe very passionately in, and can be put into place immediately. It strikes me that we hear, as I've heard for over 6 years, a board that says we want to do community school, or candidates that say we want to do community school, or we want to talk about district structure. But when the rubber hits the road of allocating time and resources, there has been no follow through. My leadership on this has been questioned. It takes at least 3 votes to get anything done, ideally 4 or 5. I've been the board president for under 2 years. I'm in my 2nd year. During the entire period, our board has been handicapped to 3 voting members, one of which has been very much on the record of saying, I am philosophically 100% opposed to your scope of governance. I believe we only govern the kids at Bayside MLK, and we have to allocate all our resources there. You cannot move that position, and therefore you cannot create consensus on anything. When you have a failed process to build consensus, you've got to change the people. I think that's what this election is about, is bringing new people in. The people running here are not the old Willow Creek leadership. the old board members who've made past decisions. It's a set of fresh new faces that are going to work together to solve problems. So I believe strongly in one school, and I know what the process looks like.
So you had won specifics for each of us and what we think. I think that it would be great to have both of our campuses remain open. I think we need to ensure the highest capacity possible, because if we and as we maintain a charter that will become better, and if we maintain and improve our traditional school program as well, we're going to attract more students. Both families that want to stay like mine and other people having kids in the area that stay around and raise their kids here. So we're going to have an increase in capacity that way. And since a charter can accept kids from out of the district and does so very often, there are going to be more interest from around the county and San Francisco. So we're going to need capacity. That's why I fundamentally believe both campuses need to stay open. I think that both campuses were built for a specific reason. Sausalito campus was built to be an elementary and lower campus school. Marin City was built to be a middle school, period. When they transitioned to become a K-8, they had to put in portable buildings. Like, I went to portable building classrooms a lot growing up. And you always felt like, there was the school and there was the portables. So I do think that we need to have both campuses. Both campuses were built for a reason that we can build towards that reason again. And that's why I think we should have a lower school in Sausalito with all kids at it, and a middle school in Marin City with all kids at it.
I couldn't agree more with everything that Kurt and Josh said in answer to this question. The only thing that I would say, Nathan has a very specific idea. I think it would be premature to prescribe exactly the structure, that we're going to do it this way or that way without engaging the community. So I'm not going to say that it must be one way or the other. I do know from the research and the literature that a K-8 structure in a community like ours is very advantageous. It is so something we should absolutely consider. But we need to do this together. This is not something that any small group of people makes a decision on by themselves. It's with and for the community that we should approach this decision.
So I just believe in that old adage that if it's not broke, why fix it? And 17 years ago, there was a decision to just not have a one school system and turn it into two. And so that's where we are today. We have two school system. And we all absolutely have come to the agreement that, having, excuse me, Jen, having one school is beneficial to this, to the town of Sausalito and Marin City. And actually, and Josh, you can correct me, but I believe that the community school model came on, the board adopted that several years ago, so it's a part of our LCAP. So even though you may have been talking about it for 6 years, just a few years ago has it become a part of our LCAP. And coupled with that, there's some traction that is happening on that model. So in terms of your question, I would love to see a single school system somewhere down the road, quite frankly. Because I don't think that the time is now for that to happen. And it's something that has to be well vetted out. It has to be well vetted out because our parents felt absolutely shunned when the kids were removed from the Nevada campus into Marin City. Our kids felt, and parents felt like they don't care. Like I'm less than. And so when you want to have this dialogue on making it a one school, we cannot leave out the voices of those who many feel and think are the less than. That we cannot. I'd love to see it somewhere down the road, but not now. many more questions are we?
I think we're done. So,
I have one question as a board member, as a board attendee. And that question is really simple. We've had some issues on the board. We've had issues of letters to the board not appearing in the public comment. We've had issues of quorum and board meetings getting rescheduled. We've had issues of votes not being able to happen because people had to recuse themselves and so on. It's pretty clear for those of us who attend board meetings that the governance structure of the board itself has to change, and I would ask you, how would you change it? Because we need an effective decision-making body.
May I start?
yes.
So, okay, we didn't have that problem in 2014. It wasn't a problem. And I can only remember one board meeting, and it was the most recent, having to be rescheduled. And the reason why we are not working cohesively as a board is because there are some folks who feel that they need to recuse themselves for whatever personal matter that is, and they're professionals. So well, Thomas is no longer with the board, so we don't have to worry about Thomas. But Caroline is a professional, and her license, she believes, stands, it's in a very fragile, for her, based on her lawyer giving her the advice to recuse herself. So it's not about coming on the district board to be dysfunctional. That's not what I signed up for, quite frankly. I came on, and when I was appointed in 2014, I was told by Mr. Ziegler I had one voice, which I understand. Yes, I have one voice. But we needed to work, and I believe that we did some great work as a team. And so I don't think you sign up to come on this to just be a dysfunctional board. I did not sign up for that. My husband can tell you, right, I spend long nights at board meetings. So I'm here and very hopeful to return in some, because even if my feet does not land back on the board, I will not disappear from the work that is yet to be done within our school system.
I think we have, I agree, I haven't seen a lot of disruption from that perspective. I think we have a pretty small district, so I don't know that changing the structure of the board is something that should or needs to be looked at. I've been in a lot of those meetings too. They do go very long. There's a lot of energy put into topics. One thing, when I first got involved 3 years ago, I recognized that the information available was, one, hard to find, two, incredibly difficult to understand, and very few people looked at it. So I had actually offered to, as an extension of the board, I didn't know how things worked. I just said, hey, I want to do something to change this. I'm an advertising and communications professional. Can I help officially communicate to the community, create materials that are written in relatable language that normal people, like someone like myself, can actually understand easily, and share that with a broader community? That offer wasn't taken up, and I understand now why, but I was a little naive at the time. But I had to do that on my own, going to every meeting, taking the summaries, sharing them with individuals who, over time, it was just some friends in the two classes, grew to be about 150 people over time that heard about my summaries. And then I'd call people, hey, come in to this meeting. This is a very important meeting. You should be here. But I would love to, personally, one of those skills that I would bring to the board is broader, more relatable, clear communication. So I think that will help a number of the items that you spoke about, Kate, that you were prescribing, I think, a structural change, but I think there are other things that we can do to fix that.
Before I jump in, it'll be a short answer, so time is not necessary. Are we going to close with like a minute closing each? I just want to remind you of the format. Or is this like, we've gone long, we're going to shut down?
No, I think we've gone long.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll excuse you guys if any members want to stay here. You're welcome
Sure.
to peruse for a little while.
Okay.
We'll get a little bit of time.
All right.
We're getting late.
Then I'll just stack in my last minute with the answer here.
Okay.
At the last forum, I mentioned that I would like to reformat the meetings in one very particular way, which would be to include kids in every meeting, whether it's an art presentation or the choir singing to us or whatever. Like, I want kids to be included so that it reminds every parent in the room, board included, what we're doing there. And I made the same joke that I'll make now, is that it's a lot harder to yell at each other when there are kids in the room. The second thing, I guess, about structure is boards can be made up of any odd number, like 3, 5, or 7 people. So if we don't think we're accurately representing the voices in our community, we can look at, do we need to go to a 7-person board? Do we need to change how we assign those seats? Like, is that up for debate? So we can open that up, which seems important, but I wouldn't put it before February deadline for financing and like a few other things that we just know have to happen. Like, we have an interim superintendent, we need to find a formal superintendent, we need to agree long-term on a structure. Do we need to decide that before or after we decide on the structure for our board? Like, does it make sense to appoint somebody who is a base at MLK parent since we don't have one on the board? Like, does that level of representation matter? Should it matter? So I think those questions are important, and I think that we can bring them up. Last thing, there is another forum tomorrow night. I want to make sure everybody in the room knows that. It's at 7 o'clock at Bayside MLK. If you go to my site, onedistrictallstudents.com, there is a 2-question survey. 1, what do you think is the most important priority for our district? And 2, where do you live? Sausalito, Marin City, or Marin County in general. The answers to that survey will be shared with all the candidates on stage. If you want to share it broadly with your community, we'll have more answers. That way, there's 6 options. We've all touched on all of them, right? So I would love to get a very quick, very informal survey of what is the most important priority to you. onedistrictallstudents.com.
Kate, I read your letter. It's been moved around in a couple different formats, but the content's the same. And you raised some interesting ideas and questions about structure of the board. But in your question tonight, the examples that you laid out of dysfunction, I don't think have much to do with structure. I think much of that dysfunction, I would agree with Ida on this, has come in the last couple of years. There's been dysfunction before that, don't get me wrong, but it's at an all-time high. When you have recusing board members or a resignation and board down to 4 members, effectively 3 with a recusal. In its current structure, it requires unanimity. Boards aren't really set up for that because there's diversity, dissenting opinions. And as much as you try, you usually don't get everybody on the same page for everything. And some of the more important contentious issues are even tougher. It's particularly tough with the current composition of the board, which is a reflection of different viewpoints in the community. And while that's healthy, it can also logjam things and get to a point where you can't get to the 3 votes you need. And that's really what's been going on for the last 2 years. I think this election is going to cure a lot of that. We're going to have one sitting board member that's going to recuse for a period of time. Maybe she'll resign, maybe she'll start voting, but that will eventually end. We'll have at least 4 voting board members. And I would hope that these things we say we all agree on, regardless of the outcome, we start moving things forward. I know we'll do it with Kurt, Jen, and myself. So the structural change, I would agree with Nathan on this. We don't do that often, apparently. But the structural change is something that would be interesting to talk about, but it's way down my priority list. There's some fires that need to be put out, some more strategic things that need to be addressed. One small correction that's come up a couple times tonight, this idea of portables. I know it's off this question, but these are modular buildings.
And portables.
The new buildings are modular buildings. Those are what were constructed when the schools were consolidated. The portables have been there for far too long, need to be upgraded or replaced. Modular buildings are state-of-the-art. They're not the portable other buildings, and they're used throughout the county and throughout the state. They're very high quality. So it's just one small example of a lot of things that I find on your website and just circulating out in letters to the editor and so forth. It's wrong. It paints this narrative of the evil Willow Creek people and look what they've done. And it's not necessary. It's not forward-looking. I like this question, it's forward-looking. It's just not the highest priority, and I don't think we need structural change to solve this board issue. We need this election.
So I think one of the things that's incredibly important when I've gone to board meetings is that by the time the board gets to serious things, I think everybody's sort of exhausted. And it seems to me that, again, the work that I have done over the years, there's always committee structures, and I know Josh has tried to do that, and that hasn't been apparently successful. But that's how you get work done. You have committees, you have the opportunity to have meetings where everybody can come together. Under the Brown Act, maybe it's 2 people, or maybe it's 3 people, and you notice the meeting. I hear a lot of interest and support. I mean, these are all people who, we're all devoting a tremendous amount of time, right, on this campaign already, and I think that I personally would be happy to have 2 meetings a month or more to really, if we really are going to have these discussions, if we really are going to figure out how to get to one school, if we are going to figure out how to get to a community school, whatever those solutions, everything I've heard involves hearing from the community and talking about it. And I think it should be done in a forum where everybody can hear each other so that we can actually have these discussions in a much more substantive way. And that's the thing that I feel is missing, is that there hasn't been that opportunity for people to have those conversations. I agree. When you go to the board meeting, I think Josh runs a nice meeting, people have the opportunity to say something, and there's no opportunity for feedback. There's no opportunity for dialogue. There's none of that. And I think that you have to do that through a committee structure. And so, and these are big, big, big issues that we've all talked about. I mean, if we have to make this decision by February, and there's November, December, January, I mean, there has to be committees, and there has to be more opportunity for everybody in the community to be involved in hearing about those decisions. And maybe it's correcting any misinformation that's out there. Maybe it's sharing, because again, I agree, I think that having a consistent common information is really critical. And I think the work that Jen has done to try to identify here important issues for parents is really valuable, and we should make that a function of the board. That should be something that we commit to doing, is to having those conversations, to have synopses. So you don't have to read the entire agenda. You don't have to watch the entire 4 hours online, which I do because I'm a geek. But, just to make it much more accessible for parents.
Okay, great. I'm the one between you and the door. I think there are a lot of things that we can do to make this a better functioning board. I have found through my experiences that there are a couple things. One, you definitely need committees. People have always asked, how is it that we get so much done? One is you've got to have committees because you've got to be doing the work outside of the board meeting. It's just not that tough. The next thing you need to do is you need to figure out who needs to be involved, and you need to bring sometimes students and teachers and other community members into those committees and into those discussions so that you're getting that feedback in not only an informal but a productive environment so you can start making things happen. You need to have people from 2 schools, if you're working with 2 schools. Bring those people together in those committees, but you don't only need to do those, you need to be very open about why are we doing this? What's our goal? When are we going to get it done? And report out. We do so much in this district. We have, I don't know how many consultants are working for the district right now. It's a ton. There is no reporting, no accountability, and tons of money going out the door. It's that type of work to say, what do we need to do? How are we going to get it done? And communicate out to people. That's the way that I think we can make the board function a lot better and make the change that we need to see. Thanks.
Thank you all, and thank you all. You guys can hang out for a little while. We'll stay open, and feel free to ask anybody any questions that you want. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.